us, and she's going to be she's going to concluding our talk master sessions, and we hope you enjoyed, and we're very confident Muskan is going to have an amazing session with you all as well. So Muskan, whenever you feel you're ready. Guys, by the way, if you could please switch your videos on. Just make it more. You can play for.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. No one likes to talk to blank spaces. I am sure. I would love if your videos are on. It would really help me to connect with all of you and explain the art of storytelling. Can we quickly have some videos on? I know everyone is comfortable by switching their videos off, but it would be really great. I would appreciate. Thank you so much, Ria. I see your video. Well, okay, let me begin. If it interests you, you can switch on your video as and when you feel so. It's crazy, you know. Life has different ways of teaching you lessons. Since childhood, I've always thought that if I cannot do something once, I'll never be able to do it. I've always been a child who was in the top 3 of the class, the scholar of the class. So it was for sure that whenever anything that happened that would be related to curriculars or study, teachers would randomly choose me. It so happened in 6th standard, it was a debate competition. And my teacher came to me and told, Muskan, you are really good at writing. So why not take part in debating? And I was like, I think I'll not be able to do it. She's like, why not, Muskan? You can. And the only thing that went in my mind was, if she believes I can, probably I should give it a shot. So I was all prepared. I started preparing on the topic. I had my team. It was the D day. I was on stage wearing the white shirt, blue skirt, my Sunday of the tie longer than the Monday. Quite excited to begin. And then I go on stage. We were talking about uniforms should be banned in school. And my team was against. There were 1,000 people in the audience. It was my first. I had the spotlight on me just like I have it right now. I go on stage. I start talking. As soon as I look up at the audience, something changes. I didn't know what to speak next. I start shivering. There are goosebumps. And that little girl inside me just wants to run. I couldn't do anything. I knew if I go back, my teammates would be super angry. And if I just keep standing there, all of them are constantly looking at me, 1,000 eyes on me, and I couldn't do that. I just didn't know. That little girl just wanted to cry, rush, so many emotions all together. The only thing I could see was Muskan run, flight. And I just went off. I went to the washroom and I cried my heart out. The only thing I wanted there was my mom near me. I didn't know what to do. And that day I decided from today onwards, I am never going on stage. Well, that's an irony if you see. When I went to my 10th standard, I used to watch a lot of Suits, if you all remember. Harvey Specter, Mike Ross. And that made me believe I want to be a corporate lawyer anyhow. I started preparing for CLAT. I gave my CLAT exams. But somehow in the journey, something changed. I got to realize that I can never be a good speaker. Speaking is not my cup of tea, so I should just give it up. And I shifted my journey from being a lawyer to joining BBA. Well, if you want to know the rest of the story, I would want some cameras on, really, on what turned me into a public speaking coach. And I would continue that at the end. Now, the same story, if I would have spoken it this way, that I was in 6th standard, I participated in a competition, and I did not fare well. I ran off the stage. So that is why I had the fear of public speaking. And then I decided not to be a corporate lawyer and join BBA. What exactly would be the difference between the first story and the second story? You can write on the chat box, you can unmute yourself and answer. Anyone? Difference between the first story and the second story. Okay, I think Rajat wants to answer.
Visualization.
Visualization, okay, yes. What else?
You can connect to the character.
Connecting to the character, visualization. Well, what else? A lot of things I think could have been different if I had spoken the second story and not the first one. Any more answers? Or you did not feel any difference? Did you feel any difference between the first story and the second story? Can I get a yes, no?
The first story was more passionate.
First story was passionate. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, I would make it easy for all of you. In the first story, I tried to speak more about and try to emote whatever I was trying to do or whatever happened with me. And in the second story, I just stated facts. 1, 2, 3, this happened, and finally concluded. The first one sounds more interesting. Thank you, Nitika. Anyone else? Okay. So, well, let me just continue. Since ages, educators, marketers, motivational speakers, coaches, everyone has used storytelling in their journey to communicate something, maybe to sell a product, maybe to motivate, to persuade people. Yes, right? Even advertisers. Don't few advertisements stand out when we are watching them and they just touch our heart sometimes and we remember them? Yes. Nowadays, advertisements do not really tell you this, okay, buy this product. No. They try to touch your hearts. They try to do several things so that you can actually relate to the product, relate to the company. What are they actually doing? They're using storytelling in this journey. Storytelling can be used everywhere. I'll give you an example. One of my friends sat for an interview at KPMG. Now, while in the interview process, she got to know that the one who was in the panel, liked stories. So whatever example she started giving to the panel to justify her point, she started using storytelling. She started telling stories from her childhood, from her college, so that the interviewer could relate to her. And while telling stories, she obviously used the art of storytelling. Well, today we're going to talk about all of this. Now, I am sure you are all in college and some of you have graduated. You all have amazing experiences with your friends. Some incredible instances might have happened, some embarrassing situations that might have occurred, and some situations you don't even want to remember, right? But sometimes you tend to talk about it with friends, with your relatives, with your family. But do you sometimes feel that there's this one person in the group who can actually talk in such a manner that it makes you relive those memories again? It takes you back to those times. They mention every situation in such a beautiful way that you feel, oh my God, I would have never justified speaking like that. Right? So what is that person doing? That person is using the art of storytelling to justify his or her point or to make you remember. So today in this session, we are going to cover few things on how to ace the art of storytelling. It's not easy, I would say, but it is not something that's impossible. I learned it a few days back, and today I'm going to share all of my experiences. We'll also have an activity. So for that, I would really like if all of your cameras are switched on. If some of you at least can switch on your cameras, it'll be great. Otherwise, let's just begin. Now, one thing I realized when it comes to stories is that if you do not remember them, you cannot speak about it. Few days ago, I attended a session on NLP where our trainer told us that you need to remember instances. And when she told me to speak about an instance, I couldn't remember any. I couldn't remember a happy moment. I couldn't remember a sad moment in my life. And I was shocked. How is that possible? I have lived 23 years. It's impossible that I can't remember. And that's when I realized I never lived those moments. So I started making a note of all of the few small instances that I started having. The happy moment, the sad moment, the embarrassing ones, just small gists of each. So when I am talking about stories, I can actually go back to it, see it, and speak about it. That's the first thing I started doing before even the art of storytelling began in my life. The second thing that we can do is we can start a story with something interesting. Long time ago, once upon a time, I think I've become cliche starts to a story. Do you agree? Yes. Can you all tell me some interesting ways to start a story? Let's hear from all of you. Can't think of any. Mohit is lacking his brain to think of something. Yes, Nayantara, if you want to share. Miraj is saying once upon a time. Yes, Miraj, there we can start with once upon a time, but how about we do something different? Because if you are with 50 people who are giving an interview, and if you will see 90% of them starting with once upon a time. It's time for us to stand out. And how can we do that? And to hook the audience from the start, right? 10 seconds, if I speak, I do not hook all of you, I'm sure maximum of you must be going to sleep with your camera switched off or maybe visiting something else. So, okay, I have some answers on the chat. Let me tell you what happened to me. Yes, Nitika, a very good start to a story, I would say. Ria saying laughing, giggling, if it is a happy moment, yes. Himanshu, it was summer off. Yes, you can start that way. Madhu, start with humor. Yes, we can start with humor also. But with humor, there's one thing we have to be very choosy with humor because it might work or it might not work with some people. What might be humorous to you might not be humorous to the other person. You can also start with, it's crazy, it was unbelievable. It's a true story, right? We can start with all of these. We can also start with, this remind me of my friend. Yes, you can also start with, this reminds me of my friend who. Correct. So these are few ways that you can start your story with. I didn't mean to kill her. Okay, that's an interesting opening line. I am sure that's going to hook the audience from the start and they would want to hear what happened next. I'm sure you didn't kill anyone. Okay. So that is definitely one of the ways that you can start your story. The second thing, the best way to go ahead in the story is not to let the cat out of the bag too quickly. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that do not really tell what you're going to tell in the story in the first half. Because then the audience is already prepared. Okay, she's going to speak about this, and I know how the story is going to build up. You know, when you watch movies, especially Bollywood movies, sometimes you just know who's going to be the killer, or you just know who is what. And you feel like, okay, I know I'm going to guess what's going to happen in the movie. Right. It's fun at that time because you're with your friends or with someone else, but when you're delivering a speech, you don't really want the audience to know you from the first. So do not let the cat out of the bag very quickly. Like when I shared my story, I did not share till now that how did I switch from a person who did not know about public speaking to becoming a public speaking coach. Many of them are still in suspense regarding it. What exactly changed? What is the turning point in her life? How did she become like a fluent speaker? Right? So do not let the cat out of the bag very quickly. Third thing is emotions and painting a descriptive picture. Now, while I was talking about my story, I mentioned few details that made you visualize about my tie, about my shirt, about my skirt, about the audience. So this way, it makes the audience realize or visualize what exactly am I trying to make them picture. If today I just give the details, I went on stage and I spoke, yeah, it's normal. Would not really take you with me to back to the story, right? So giving those details, now I know it's sometimes difficult to paint the exact picture. So how we can start? We can start off by setting the stage, the setting the location of the story, where exactly the story what happened. So maybe like an auditorium or a school or somewhere else. So when you set the stage, the audience clearly knows that this is where the story happened. What next? After that, you go ahead and introduce characters in your story. You can't just say a little girl or a boy or maybe a man. No, describe that person at least, because you are speaking. The person is not seeing the visuals. You have to make them see the visuals. What are the few things that we can describe about a character of a person? The physical appearance or maybe a person. Let's. Okay, yes, Mohit.
I mean, different things. The type, I mean, his way of combing hair, maybe if he has a big nose, is he fat
Right.
or thin, his dressing sense, his way of talking, a lot of things, I guess.
Correct. So maybe his physical attributes, maybe about his or her hair, his or her eyes, right? The height, probably maybe how the person looks, the color of the hair, how the person is dressed. If the person is dressed formally, informally, wearing smart casuals, right? So just the small descriptions. I'll just give you an example. When you think about Harry Potter, like right now, I think Deepa Agarwal joined and the Harry Potter just popped. So when you think about Harry Potter, what are the few things that you can think about him instantly?
The hair, the mark on the.
The scar, the
Yeah.
glasses. How about Dumbledore? Beard, right? So that those are standing points, right? When you think about them. Same way, if you try to build up a story where your character has these unique points, people are bound to remember you. They are bound to be able to visualize. And sometimes it happens. I'll tell you an incident. So last week I was in Pune and I had gone out with my friends for dinner, and there was this person who was having dinner with his family, and he looked exactly like Dumbledore. He had that beard, and all of my friends were like, "That is Dumbledore," and we were like, "How important!" And that thing stuck to my head just because. And I haven't watched Harry Potter movies. I've just read books. That picture that J.K. Rowling has painted in that book was still in my head. Imagine the power of voice that you have that time. You can paint the picture in a person's mind. So, giving those physical attributes play a long way while setting up your story. The next thing that we can speak about is how you deliver the story. Does delivery play an important role, or is content more important? It's an age-old debate. So let me get an answer here today.
Yeah, I feel it's important, the voice modulation and all that.
Voice modulation is important. Okay. What about the others who have joined? I'll just take names. Gitesh, Aryan, Shipra, Shikar, Shike, Sandeep, Aparna, Himanshu, Yogendra. What do you think? What is more important, the content or the delivery of a speech, of a story? Both. Miraj is saying both. Okay. Others are thinking the delivery is more important. Okay, delivery is more important. Both. Delivery of the story. Okay. Okay, so maximum are going to the end of delivery is more important in the story. Well, my viewpoint is also delivery is more important, but I have heard people saying content and delivery both go equally. Well, when it comes to story, obviously the way you build the character, the way you set up the scene is important. However, if you are not able to express that, if you're not able to share that with the audience, then what is the point of just painting the picture? Can you mute them?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, thank you. So if you just write the content, not deliver it with the same emotions, there's literally no point, right, of writing a beautiful story and not being able to express. So, what are the key factors that help you in that? First comes your eye contact. Now, today, while I'm talking to you, people who have their cameras switched off, do you agree that you feel I'm talking to you? Do you feel that I am looking at you while I'm talking to you? Yes? Now, tell me this if this has happened to you, that you are sitting and maybe your mom is sitting on the opposite end. You're talking to your mom and suddenly your sibling walks in and stands in between. Do you tell your sibling to move? I just want to talk to my mom. I want to see her while talking. Yes or no? Yes. Why? Your mom can hear you. Why do you want to see her while talking? Any answers? Connection gets broken, Gitesh. Very good answer. Exactly. Your connection gets broken. Same way, when we are delivering a story, if you do not look at the audience, your connection gets broken. They do not relate to you. Imagine if I had my video shut down and I'd spoken about art of storytelling. You would have understood few things, but you would not have related to me. Same way, when we are speaking on a virtual stage, offline stage, one-on-one, it's good to look at the audience. And I am not saying you to stare at the audience. It does not mean that 1 minute if you're speaking to one person, one-on-one, you will keep looking at the person with your eyes open. No, you do not want them to be uncomfortable. Just look at the person in between, maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds. When you're on stage, divide your attention. 1, 2, 3. You can also use the simple technique of W. Move your eyes in the alphabet W, and you will see you can cover the entire audience. Just try that if possible. Just move your eyes in the W direction, and you will see the entire audience is covered. And you will not have to look at one particular spot. There are a lot of people who tell me, Muskan, can we just look at one spot and speak because we will feel more comfortable, we'll feel more confident? I would say, what about the others? For them to listen to you, they have come with their time, effort, money, and you are not going to look at them. You can't do that, right? If you feel that you are unconfident at the start, you can start by looking at one person in the audience who gives you that warmth and you feel confident. After looking at them, start looking at the others. That's the first part in the art of storytelling. You have to look at the person and build that connection. Second thing comes to emotions. Now, I get this question from a lot of, especially men. I'm not being biased, but I get this question from a lot of men when I'm training clients. That Muskan, I'm not able to express. I can go on the stage and talk, but those emotions don't come on my face. What do? I can just have like a small smiling face and speak, or maybe just like a normal face and speak. Well, what I would say is visualize yourself or take yourself back to the situation when that incident happened with you. Before starting off, just close your eyes, take yourself to that incident. Imagine that exactly is happening with you. And I did not believe in this power of visualization, but it works 100%. If you take yourself back to that situation, you will feel that you are reliving that situation once again. And you can automatically have those emotions. Because it's very rare that a person does not feel emotions, right? All of us do. It's hard to express. But if you take yourself back to those emotions, definitely you will be able to express. That's one. The second thing you can do to emote is have good hand gestures. So when you start doing a bit of hand gestures, you will feel that you automatically come in the flow of speaking. Speaking tight hand this way or keeping your hands at the back as we're taught in schools does not really work. In schools, I remember when I was second standard, hands at the back was Muskan, no bringing your hand in front. And I was like, okay, hands at the back. But when I went on stage to talk, I was like, my hands are at the back. How do I bring it forward again and again? It's so difficult. So I was like, no, hands in front, Muskan, no more hands at the back and talking. So when you are speaking, keep your hands folded this way, maybe in front of your stomach, and just open your hands in talking. Now, I am not telling you to mime your entire speech that I went to the park and then this happened. No, we are not miming our speech. We are just making audience comfortable with what we are trying to speak. Small gestures. Maybe when you're pointing about numbers, 1, 2, 3, that first I went there and then this happened. Talking about characters, setting them up, my mom and my dad. So when you talk about stories like this with your hand gestures, you will see automatically those facial expressions start showing on your face. And you are able to express better. You all watch movies, right? In movies, the characters don't just stand and speak the dialogues. They dramatize, they emote, they move their hands. Sometimes it might feel that, oh God, what am I doing? Too much dramatization. But it works. When you do too much drama, you will feel at a certain point of time, you are able to temp it down and you're able to speak better. So hand gestures and facial expressions go hand in hand in this. The few tips I would like to give you for hand gestures. For example, if you are talking about something like really important in the speech, you can use the chop gesture. It is very famous. You can use it with both the hands or maybe with one hand. This is a very efficient gesture. If you want to speak about something which is very low, maybe like calming and soothing, you can put your hands on your heart and say, yes, I believe this happened. So when you do this, the audience also feels that warmth and the connection keeps on blooming, right? Now, this is about hand gestures a bit and your facial expressions. Next comes the stage movement, if you're talking on stage. But if you're not, you're standing one-on-one, you can just directly talk. Now on stage, a lot of people will move right, left, because they want to cover the stage and because that is called stage movement. No, it is not. Stage movement is basically just to make sure that your entire audience is covered. So just divide. For example, in your story, like in my story, there were my debate mates who were at the back. Then there was the audience in front and there were teachers at the side. So what did I do? I just divided. I'm like, okay, so my debate mates were standing at the back. So I pointed with my hand. But if in my story I had dialogues, probably with my dad and me, I would have moved. In the middle, I would have placed myself. When I was speaking the dialogue of my dad, I would have moved towards the right. Again, come back to my space when I was talking about myself. This makes the audience clearly visualize, okay, so her dad is here, she is here. And this makes the audience understand clearly, okay, this is what is happening while you are telling the story, right? So these are few instances that you can do in storytelling. Also, apart from that, moving front and back, talking about your past, move back. Talking about the present, be in the center. Talking about your future, move again forward. You can also divide in 1, 2, 3, depending on your order of events. So these are few ways that you can use your stage. You do not need to rush on stage, do not need to walk on stage. It's not important. What's important is that your story is being built, because imagine if you're continuously walking on stage, would there be a connection with your audience? They would just move their eyes here and there. Okay, where is she running, right? So that's not important. Next comes the most important thing, voice. Is voice important, or you can just speak like however you want? It's definitely important. Okay, I'll ask a question to Aparna and Mohak, if you are there. How do you think voice plays an important role while speaking?
Well, we don't want to be robots.
We do not want to be robots. Definitely, we do not want to be robots while speaking. So, yes, there are several things when it comes to voice. You cannot just say that you should have great voice modulation. And you're like, what is voice modulation? How do I do it? It's simple. When you are talking about different characters in your story, make sure you imitate the voice of those characters. It takes time, but you can. At least you can speak in one different tone. You can speak in a husky tone if you feel that that is the character. You can speak in a softer tone if you feel that's the character, and you can speak in your tone. At least let the audience differentiate. Imagine you are doing a podcast, and if you do not have changes in voice, it would be so boring to listen to a monotonous voice. Now, I would not say that voice modulation happens in a day, vocal variety can happen in a day. It doesn't. It takes practice. However, you can try to build that. When I was speaking about my incident, I'm again coming back to the story again and again. That's the reason I spoke it. When I spoke about my incident, my voice became lower, right? When I was shivering and I was looking at the audience. Why? Because I wanted you to feel that. I wanted you to feel what I went through. It was a dreadful period for me. I remember delivering this speech in one of the conference and the entire audience started crying because they could feel that how a little girl, a 11-year-old girl facing so much trauma on stage. How did I do that? I have relived that moment so many times that I sometimes do not even go back to the moment, but I can speak that way. Wow, with only my voice. You can decrease the level of your voice to such an extent. And it is not impossible. You all can do that. I am sure. Because if you are able to emote, you're able to express what you are trying to say with your voice changes, it makes a lot of difference. Do not speak very, 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 very fast because the audience is not going to understand. I was a fast paced speaker. I used to rush because what I had in my head, I need to just complete my speech and get off, done. My stage time is over. But that did not really do justice to the audience. Do not speak very, very, very slow. I know you all hate professors who speak very slow and tell the same point triple times. You do not want to fall in that category, right? So pace your speech accordingly. There is one more thing that's called up trance and down trance here. Do you feel that sometimes when you're listening to people, you just keep listening and other things go blur and you are just so much hooked into the speech? What have they done? They have just taken you into a trance. It is a sub element of hypnosis, which is done with words. How do they do that? If they want you to feel excited, motivated, persuade you, they will start speaking at a higher rate. This happened and that happened, then you went there, then we should do this, we should do that. But it would be clear. All the words would be clear. And even their body language would be a bit fast because they want you to feel, they want you to get into that trance where they want you to be hooked. And you will know sometimes, when you attend webinars, after 1 hour, you register for that event, even if it's like 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, because that impulse. Why does that happen? Because you are in a trance. You are in a trance with the way that the person has mentioned, the word that he used. And sometimes when you will realize a lot of speeches, you feel sympathetic towards the person, you feel empathetic, you feel, oh my God, this person has been through such a loss. How does he do that? Down trance, where they speak slowly, they pause a lot, they have slow hand movements, they'll do like, and then I was sad, and they would decrease their voice. Now, this is a skill that you learn over the time. And how do you do that? The best way is not to practice in front of the mirror. Mirror does not work. Why is it so? How many of you feel that mirror does not work? Let me see how many people do I have on my side. And how many of you feel that mirror works when it comes to practicing? Okay, do I have? Just write mirror works, mirror does not work, or maybe a yes or a no on the chat. Mirror does not work. Never tried mirrors, but a lot of people say it works. Does not work. Gitesh says, Raksha says no. Well, it's just an intelligent lot, I must say. Yes, Yogendra is saying mirror works. Okay, doesn't work, I guess. I'll give you a simple example. Imagine you're practicing in front of the mirror. What are the things you'll be able to notice? Can you notice your eye contact, hand gestures, facial expressions, your tone, your voice, your content all together? Ultimately, you will find yourself looking at yourself in the mirror. That's what is going to happen. The best way is record yourself. That's the best way. Because when you record yourself and then you go back and look at your speech, you can find several flaws that you want to improve. And then again record yourself and observe what exactly was the difference between the first one and the second one. And you will realize that what are the things that you need to improve. Especially regarding your voice, this plays a very important role, because when you listen to yourself again, you will realize, oh, I should have spoken faster here. Oh, I should have spoken a bit slower here. And then you will realize the difference between the two. So these are few ways that you can work on your voice, and that would lead to you to become a great storyteller. Next, what I want to talk about is the mistakes that we should never make in a storytelling. The first one is, when the audience is laughing while you speak, stop. Do not continue because you have to continue. Pause at that time. At least let the audience laugh. They're at least laughing at your story, which is a big deal. People do not get laughed easily. Pause, let them laugh, and then continue your story. Second, mumbling. Sometimes, we have this habit of, when we are speaking, we eat up few words. We feel we have spoken, but we eat up those words. So make sure that you are very clear. You have a lot of pauses. Third, you do not really have to be a Sashi Tharoor of English language when you're delivering stories. No one wants to sit with a dictionary and listen to your stories, honestly, unless you're speaking to Sashi Tharoor himself. Have simple language when it comes to storytelling. Have something that the audience would relate to. Do not use difficult words. Honestly, people think that if they use colorful vocabulary, people would understand a lot. No, they won't. Everyone wants to have simple words. They want to understand what you are speaking. If they're not able to understand, what exactly is the point of you delivering the story? So have simple and easy language which the people can understand. And the last thing I would say is, don't jump from one point to another very quickly. This happened and then that happened. This happened, then continue how this happened. If you're talking about an instance about your college, maybe the first day of your college, do not move again to what happened the next morning. Complete the first day of college. Let people laugh. Let people get used to what you're talking about. Share more. Use vivid descriptions. Talk about what happened in freshers. They wouldn't mind hearing, honestly. People love listening to stories. We have seen that. So these are few things that one can be careful about when it comes to storytelling. Now, I have spoken a lot. You should do this, you should do that. I'll just summarize quickly. When it comes to storytelling, be careful about your eye contact, your facial expressions, hand gestures, stage movement, your vocal variety, that means pacing and pauses and all of this. Do not fumble. I would say do not mumble. You can fumble, it's okay. It's human. To err is human. That's okay. Do not mumble. Be clear. Do not jump from one point to another. Use vivid descriptions. So all of this will make you a great storyteller. Apart from that, you try the up trance and down trance. It works magic when it comes to storytelling. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Muskan has spoken a lot about what should we do on stage and what should we do when we're talking to a lot of people. But what about when we're talking to friends? What about when we're going for interviews? Can we use art of storytelling there? Yes, you can. I'll give an example. If, for example, you have been asked a question, are you a team player? It's asked in a lot of interviews, right? That time, how do you build up a story? You have to follow the method where you take on several facts from the story and you tie it with instances. For example, if you're talking about instance from your college, maybe We Speak is a club in IIT Bombay, right? and there you had an event, Talkmasters. And you're talking about how you were a team player where maybe one person who was supposed to handle this event did not turn up, and you had to take charge of the event. So you became a team player. Now, when you say this way, there was an event at IIT Bombay, and one person did not turn up, so I took charge of the event, and that is how I became a team player. Does that make sense? Someone's like, oh, okay, everyone does it. This is something natural, right? People would do it. How do you take it to the next level? Any examples you can think of right now? How can you take this particular thing that a person did not turn up and you explain it to your panel in an interesting manner? Anyone who would like to give it a shot? Right? Yes, Nayantara, very good. So maybe you can start off with how important that event was for your club, how many registrations were going to be there, people were waiting, and if that event would not have happened properly, then how it would be so bad for the club, and how you became like a savior for the club. You were like the knight in shining, the charm at that particular time, and then you just helped everyone. Now that sounds believable. It is a bit dramatized, but it works, right? It works. Next, if you're trying to tell about that trekking experience to your friends that you just went, maybe you went on a 12-day trek to Leh Ladakh, okay? And you come back and your friend says, what happened? And you were like, okay, we went to the mountains, we saw the mountains, we chilled a lot, and then we came back. This is what happened. And your friends are like, that is normal. Everyone does it, but what did you do? And you're like, this is what I did. That doesn't sound like a great story to tell your friends, right? Imagine you have to deliver a 5 to 7 minute speech at Toastmasters about a trekking experience. And you're like, I just was normal, just normal thing that people do. You can't talk about like that. How can you take it to the next level? I'll ask Mohit. I think he's very attentive. So maybe Mohit can answer. Yes, Mohit, how would you tell this story in a better way?
Maybe we can talk about the different, I don't know, funny things that happened during the, trek or something.
Yes.
Like this guy fell down over here. It was really funny because of this. And,
right.
he had, actually given more details, I'll say.
Given more details, maybe describe. If we're talking about mountains, maybe snowy mountains or rusty mountains or brown and green in color, just weird looking mountains. And they're like, okay, interesting. No one told me about that about Leh Ladakh. Right? So making it more descriptive, making it more vivid, so that today, if I'm a person who has not gone to Leh Ladakh with you, feel the FOMO. Why did I miss out on such a great opportunity? Right? So this is how you build stories. This is how you make sure that other people relate to it, visualize more. And storytelling is a skill that can happen a lot of times. The best way, I would say, if you want to start storytelling and you want to use it in several instances, start picking normal instances from your life, start talking to people. Take out your phone, record yourself while speaking. Sounds hilarious. You might look at your video and you might laugh 100 times. Like, what did I do just now? But that is going to help you. Practice is going to take you forward. I was a person who was very bad at storytelling because I felt that it's better to be crisp and clear when you're talking about something. That's more logical. Why would people want to listen to 100 lines of what just happened with you? But I was wrong. People love to listen. When I would share my story about the entire crisis that happened with me on stage, I used to complete that story in 2 minutes. Done. It has happened that I have spoken about that story for 15 minutes. Can you imagine? 2 minutes, 15 minutes. How did the hell did that happen? It happened because I added emotions. I added vivid descriptions. I try to take the audience to that particular incident that happened with me that day. When you do that, the audience actually relates to you. It finds you more credible. Otherwise, why would someone believe something like this, right? You have to show that you are feeling that particular thing. And then this is bound to happen. Okay, let's do a simple activity. So I would want all of you to think of certain instances from your life. I'm just going to give few examples: an embarrassing incident, or happy, sad, shy, scary, thrilled. Just think of one story from any of these instances and let's share. You can add as much a description you want, add as much details you want, and let's hear your stories. Think of any incident from your life which you want to share. It may be something that gives a moral lesson to everyone, maybe like a takeaway message, like how consistency is important, or how hard work pays off, or how smart work is better than hard work, probably. Anything, just think of one instance from your life that you would like to share. And then I'll try to give feedback on how we can improve it better. I'll give all of you 2 to 3 minutes to think. I think that is more than enough to think of a story. Yes, anyone who's ready to share? Just a minute. Yes, no problem. Go ahead. Can we spotlight her?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nayantara, for sharing that. And I think we might be thinking, okay, what luck does Nayantara have? Okay, so Nayantara, wonderful story. I would say very well shared. Few instances stood out. What could have been better here, I feel, is when talking about the ball coming and hitting you, you could have described the ball. Ball swinging, or maybe a ball rushing towards me. I saw something coming towards me, like bam, something hit me on the head. Dramatize it a bit more. So what will happen is the audience is going to laugh with you. Oh God, what just happened with Nayantara? And the second time again, use the exact same thing that you did for the first one. So there's like a repetition, right? But the audience would like it. So well done, Nayantara. Great share. Next, who wants to go next? Mohit wants to go next.
Yeah, I'll go next.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Mohit.
So yeah, this was something that happened when I was in 10th standard. Okay, so
Okay,
we were like
before Mohit, before you go ahead, look at the audience.
oh right, yeah. Yeah, so this was something that happened when we were in 10th standard. So it was basic, like we were a very small class of around 25 students. That's it. So yeah, there was this guy. So we had a small group within the small group, and we were like kind of pranksters. Okay, so yeah, one day like I just came into the class, and there's this guy called Varun. He just randomly he just told me like you can like so the kind of tables that we had were these individual tables. Okay, so like one person one table sort of. So he jumped onto it and he was like, can you do that? That's all he said. There was something fishy, I knew, and I just kind of examined the whole table. It seemed fine. So yeah, and I thought, okay, something's wrong, but okay, let me do it. And I jumped on it, and the whole thing like fell down, broke, and like I fell down. So yeah, it was like a very I don't know. At least at that time, it was an embarrassing moment. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you, Mohit, for sharing. I know I shouldn't laugh at this, but I couldn't help myself from stop myself from laughing at this. Okay, so Mohit, great share again. I feel the way you described the table, and I could visualize that. Okay, tables were here and climbing on top of that. That was nice. The only thing I felt was you jumped twice in between, not like jump literally, but like jumped while you were sharing your instance, because you were talking about a friend, and suddenly the tables came up. So maybe talk about the table, then talk about a friend. Okay. It felt that you also rushed there. You were like, oh, I talk about this. And then you went back to your friend again. That's one thing I think you can be more better at. Otherwise, awesome. Well done, I would say.
Yeah,
next, anyone else who wants to share any incident from their life? Is this like a classroom where I have to pick people to share? It's a great opportunity to share, friends. Maybe talk about something funny, talk about something entertaining, something scary. You can also share horror stories. We don't mind that. Okay, I think the audience is very quiet. Did someone unmute to speak? No. Okay, no problem. So when you talk about stories, these are few things definitely that you can talk about, you can share, and this is how you build up. Now, when it comes to stories that you have to sometimes create as hypothetical situations, right? Something that hasn't happened with you, something fictional, just to prove a point, probably. What do you do then? For that situation, you need to think of certain conflicts. Without a conflict, a story is not possible. Take small examples. Take Lion and the Mouse story. Take Hare and the Tortoise. Even those stories had some conflict, because of which there was a solution, and then the story happened, right? So how do you create those conflicts? Now there are certain situations. One, you can create a person and object conflict. For example, your shoe getting stuck at the door and you can't get out of it. This is a random example. So a person and an object conflict is something that you can create. Two people, basically, two people conflict. Mostly that happens, right? A person fighting with other person regarding something. A person and an organization conflict. This will be useful when you are talking about examples, trying to make a point, right? So person and organization, for example, you forgot to send a mail to the company head, or maybe you did something, you sent a resignation letter, was not accepted. You applied for a leave and you did not get the leave. Something like this. You all will face this when you're out of college. I hope you don't. So that is something that you can do. Apart from that, a person and nature conflict is also you can talk about. What do you mean by nature? Floods, trees falling, and road accidents. Not that would be the nature. Something regarding nature. So nature and person conflict is also something that you can create. Person and animal conflict. Again, you can create. So these are few conflicts that you can keep in mind, that, okay, what story do I want to tell the other person? And what takeaway message do I really want the other person to know? When you are preparing for presentations, your PPTs, sometimes you might feel that you need to give an hypothetical example to prove your point, to make it more credible. So for those situations, you cannot visualize yourself to that situation. It might be difficult because it's fiction. So for that particular moment, you can talk about certain conflicts, choose one conflict from here, try to make a story from there, and then tell it. Always think about the takeaway message that you want to give. No one likes to go home without learning something. No, either you entertain them and make them laugh a lot, or you give them a message which they can take away home. Either of these two things you should do. And if your story is a combination of both the things, nothing like it. I try to give humor in between. I am bad at it, but I'm learning, I would say. I am more of like a serious person. So humor and punchline is not something my cup of tea, but I try to do that. I try to add punchlines in between so that you get that smile on that face and I can live up to my name. So that is something that you can try while giving fictional speeches, fictional stories. Okay. With that, I would open the floor for questions right now. Any questions that you have regarding storytelling, or maybe how to deliver great stories? You can type on the chat box if it's difficult for you to speak. Any questions that we have regarding storytelling? Because there are two things if you're not asking questions. Either I was crystal clear with everything that I spoke, or did not understand a word that I spoke. So yes, I would love your questions. Okay. Can we create story with technical content? Nitika, yes, you can create story with technical content, because if you see, a lot of engineers also tell stories when they are selling their softwares, or when they have when they're selling something which they have just made. And how can you share that? Anyone would like to give an example? How can you create stories with technical content? If anyone, Sanat, if you want to share how to create story with technical content.
Yeah, to create story, there can be any situation. You can tell about that particular situation where, for example, a car broke down and how you actually repaired. And in that story, that emotion when the car broke down on the highway, and you get that story, set the stage, and then a person comes, or anyone who knows how to fix that problem, and they do, and then describe that in detail. So you have to grab the attention, and then when you explain it in detail, how you fix that problem, all the technical details, then it's likely that the audience understands it more better, the technical things as well, and they also get entertained and they like things.
Thank you, Sanat. I think he made a very valid point. Use the technical content and describe it in a layman's term. That is how you build up a story. For example, when Google Suite was introduced, the person did not market it as, okay, you have to use PowerPoint because it helps you in that. He or she might have built up a story, right? To literally tell people what exactly is it used for. So break the story down. For example, when people talk about physics in schools, when we talk about when we're taught about certain things, teachers come up with weird examples to teach that. But it works. It somehow stays in your brain, and you remember that, right? So yes, stories can be done with technical content also. How to tell a story inside a story. Interesting, Gitesh. So when you, for example, you are telling a story about, let's take my example. I am telling a story about how I went on stage, I did not speak. Now in that story, I insert one more story about something that happened 10 years back, right? So that is how I take you back, that 10 years ago, this happened to me. And that is how you insert a story inside a story. You can also insert like a futuristic story in that. It's very easy. There's no hard and fast rule, just that your chronology breaks. If you have read the book And the Mountains Echoed by Khalid Hosseini, in that he has inserted a lot of stories inside a story. That is a wonderful book to read. You can also check that.
Yes, so
Do we?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you gauge the attention span that is needed for a story? Because all stories will run on different time frames, and the audience necessarily might not be inclined to really follow you throughout that story.
Right. That's a good question. So when it comes to stories, what we need to understand, and when it comes to stories or speeches or anything else, we need to know our audience first and understand them. If today I am talking to a bunch of teenagers, they do not have attention span for more than 45 minutes. Trust me. When I'm talking to senior citizens, you speak to them for 2 hours, they will listen to you. Right? So you need to gauge according to the psychological behavior of those people. That is the best way to know the audience. Apart from that, when you speak something that they relate to, the time doesn't matter. They watch movies for 3 hours, right? Because it is something that interests them. Today, if I go on speaking for 2 hours, there'll be only one person remaining in the room, that would be me. And you probably, because you're in charge of this event. So we need to understand that how much would the attention span be keeping yourself in those shoes. And your story should also be broken down. That means in between, you should have something interactive. You might ask questions. You can take names of people that, you know what, Mohit, this happened to me then. You know what, Aryan, and then this happened. This would increase their attention span because they are feeling valued. At the end, every person wants to feel valued. This is also a way to increase attention span if you are struggling with how much to speak. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to speak for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It all depends. In a speech, for example, it would be good to have, for a 5 to 7 minute speech, it would be good to have one story for the length 1 minute to 1 minute 30 seconds. More than enough to prove your point. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we have. It feels hard for me to look at the person in the eyes when I'm remembering the event. Is there a way to change it? Okay. So, Mohit, it's not only about you, it's with a lot of people. When they are thinking, automatically it's our tendency that our eyes look upward. It is very normal. It is nothing new. So what you have to do is, before even you start telling your story, you have to remember, okay, and I'm going to talk about this. Do not look at the person continuously. Keep moving your eyes. I told at the start, just making a story for 2 minutes. For 2 minutes, do not look at the person. The other person also gets uncomfortable. And you keep looking at them. So it's better that while mentioning a story, just look down for a while, remember the event, and then move on. And the best thing about stories is, Mohit, it saves you. How? You don't really have to remember facts. It has happened with you. Right? So it comes like a flow. There's nothing to change. And the other person would not know even if you change something. So you are the boss of your own story. Right? If you miss out one event, it's fine. And I would say, if you want to really practice this skill, I think a selfie camera and recording yourself works. It works. Because a lot of people cannot even look at themselves for more than 1 minute. So if you start mastering that art, that will also help Mohit. Okay, any more questions do we have?
So you have one more question about the attention span.
Okay.
So if you find that someone's losing their attention, do you like improvise in between or you pause over there? Like what do you do?
Okay. So I'll tell you one incident that happened with me. I was delivering at an event and I just felt that the people were not switching on their cameras and, they were not listening. And it was not. So I felt really bad that day. I went to my mentor and told him this happened. He's like, you know what? The problem was not with you, not with the audience, it was with you. You have to be jostled and you have to be woken up because you were sleeping, so the audience was sleeping. And I was like, what? I literally gave my best and you're saying me this is like, Muskan, you had to improvise. On stage, you had to call out the names of the people. You had to ask questions. You had to pause. You had to do something unexpected. Because when you do something unexpected, people are bound to look at you. People are bound to give you attention. I'll give you an example. There's a speaker. He started off his speech by taking out a rose, looking at the rose and not speaking a word. And everyone in the audience is stunned. What is he doing? Why isn't he speaking? That caught the attention. There's another speaker who literally was speaking about bullying. Okay. He bought an underwear with him. He wore the underwear on stage. It's a world champion speech of public speaking. Okay. And people are shocked because he did something unexpected. Now, I'm not saying you to do that, Mohit. I'm just trying to say that pause, maybe call out names from the audience, maybe increase your voice a bit or decrease your voice. I think the electricity is gone. Okay. So yes, you can do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any more questions? How do you? Okay. Yes. So Nayantara, here you have to know who your audience you're speaking to and what is the level of your audience, the demographics of your audience. Okay. And how do you make sure of that? For example, if I'm talking to a young crowd of below 12-year-old, I would pick something that they would relate at that age. When I'm talking to all of you, I will not talk about parenting. You would not relate to it, right? I would not pick up, I would talk about something where you feel that today I came for art of storytelling. I picked up a story from my life. Why? Because I felt that you need to understand that this is an art that you can learn and not something that is inherent, right? So you need to understand what message are you trying to give the audience. That's number one. And number two, how much would they relate to it? Talk to people of that age before you decide your story and tell them and ask, if today I talk about this, would you relate to it? This also helps when you're starting off. And after a point of time, you will get a hang of it that, okay, I have to speak about this story. No problem. Do we have more questions? Okay, if you have more questions, you can DM me on, can you complete your story? Okay, Nitika, I would complete my story. I was waiting for someone to ask, but I just didn't want to come and complete my story. Yes, I would complete my story. You can also ping me on Instagram as well as get in touch with me on LinkedIn for any questions. I would be answering that within 24 hours. And I would also complete my story. Okay, so that's my LinkedIn username also. Yeah. So the story goes this way. I joined BBA. While I was doing BBA for the first year of my college, I realized I'm really bad at public speaking and it is required literally everywhere. I was going to give a marketing presentation in college. I was very prepared. I had my flashcards and everything. I went on stage to start speaking. And at that moment, I felt my flashcards are flying off from my hand, like a Bollywood moment, flying off my hand. I couldn't speak. Everyone staring at me. Some sad song playing in the background. And I was like, I can't, I literally want to run off, but I didn't have any chance. Coincidentally, there was an induction happening for freshers of my college. And they were told about Toastmasters. I go back home. I Google what exactly is Toastmasters. 6 p.m. that day, I Google 7 p.m. I know there's a meeting. I rush to the meeting. Toastmasters is an international organization for public speaking. I rush to the meeting. I'm like, this is what I needed. They gave me a topic to speak on. All things in world are free. I could only think about the love of my mom and dad. I start speaking about it. After 10 seconds, I can't speak more about it more because I know my mom and dad love me and that is free. That's it. That's what I could think of. And I was like, what am I doing? I couldn't speak. 6 months I joined the club. I did not go for a speech. I did not speak anything. I would come up with random excuses. Got stuck in rain, have a lot of traffic, rush to the washroom, am sick, traveling home, have extracurricular activities in college. Crazy excuses. Like I can write a book, 101 reasons to miss meetings or not speak. And then one day my mentor told me, Muskan, what's the worst that's going to happen? And like, people are going to laugh at me like crazy. And he was like, you come up with such random excuses, people are already laughing at you. Just go and give your speech. And I was like, okay. He came, picked me up, and then I went. I told my speech, and it was about me. I had to tell about me. I spoke for 6 minutes, and I was shocked. I realized the power of the stage and my voice that day. I was bad. I was not good. Nothing, Rome wasn't built in a day, same way. I didn't become a great speaker that day. I realized that I can try at least. That belief that I had in childhood, that if I am not good at something, I'll not be able to do it, was shattered that day. It was for good. I went on stage. I did my thing. From that day, I started practicing. I learned this skill. I got to know about soft skill training as a profession. I got certified. And now I am here today, presenting in front of you. This would not have happened if I would not have thought what's the worst that's going to happen, did not have a good mentor in my life, did not practice, was not consistent. Because of all of these reasons, today I am here. And I know this is a long journey. I am not as good as my role model like Ankur Variku. He's awesome. He has experiences. He's great. I'm fresh out of college. It's been 2 years I graduated from BBA. So I know I have a long way to go, but I know that there is something that I am doing, which is I came out of my comfort zone, that cocoon that I was in for so long years, like a butterfly, just spreading her wings and then coming out with colorful wings. So yes, that's my story. I never thought I would complete it here, but yes, I did. So ultimately, it's about how much you practice, how much you are ready to come out of your comfort zone to give your best. Yes, Nitika, that's my story for you. Thank you, Nitika. With that, I would like to conclude my session. Thank you so much, We Speak, for inviting me. Over to you.
Yeah, before we conclude, just a huge thank you, Muskan. Your story was really inspiring. Honestly, it was probably one of the most spectacular sessions we really had. Guys, please do check Muskan out. She also creates content on Instagram, and she's also an entrepreneur. She's founded the Your Voice. So yeah, thanks a lot, Muskan. And hopefully using maybe your advice, I can turn into some sort of Barney Stinson when I'm with my friends. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. Aryan is like best session of Talk Masters. Wow. Thank you so much. I gave my best today. See you all soon, and you can connect with